Hey everyone, and welcome back to the next part of this section. In this we'll be doing a bit of everything. We'll be adding some hands and feet to the characters, as well as creating a copy of these for the male and female version. So let's start out by doing that actually. Let's just copy this character model and move it along a bit on the x-axis so we can still see it next to the other one. And just like this. And the first thing I'm going to do is disable my annotations. So that's under view. Right here, we can just disable this node layer. And I'm thinking for these characters, we're going to have like hiking gear or camping gear, I suppose, because that's kind of the theme we've gone for with like the campsite and being in the woods and everything. So let's start out by modeling some feet here. We're going to give them some boots, and then we'll copy them across to the other version as well if we want to do so. So yeah, create as many characters as you like. I'm just going to do a male and female one. So let's start out here. Think about the foot topology. Also, remember we can hide the other ones. I'm just going to call this male base because we've already gone for kind of a male body type. And let's call this one female base. We'll just hide this so we can see it inside view. So I'm going to select all these vertices right here, and then we can extrude this down and maybe drag it back a tiny bit. That's it. And then I'm going to turn on this X-ray mode just so it's easier to see. Now I'm going to start modeling the ankle. So just follow along here. We'll give them kind of like a heel shape as well. So by the heel is, that's going to dig back a bit. And then I'm going to select these edges and extrude them down on the z-axis, scale them on the z-axis by 0. And then just move them up a tiny bit. In fact, what we can also do is press N, go up to item right here, and change the global median transform on the z-axis to 0. And that means that each of these vertices will lie completely flat. And you can see this topology right here. So now we can select these edges. Be careful to not accidentally select the wrong ones in this X-ray mode. And we can just extrude this forward on the y-axis, and then maybe move this edge down a little bit to shape the foot. So when you first look at this model, you're trying to think about which edges you want to pull out and what kind of topology you want to have, just by looking at it can be quite difficult. But I'd honestly say this just comes with practice. And if you're not sure, try different things, see what works. Okay, so now I'm going to shape the foot a little bit. So I'll just move this one out on the x-axis, maybe move this along as well. Kind of have it going out wider towards the toes. We can move this on the shift z-axis. And I'm just thinking about the planes here. We want to have the inner toes a little bit further forward than the ones on the side. Looks like I've accidentally moved this on the wrong axis. So let's just snap these ones. So if I enable vertex snapping right here, I can just snap it on the z-axis to the other ones. And let's have this nice line running around the side. There we go. I'm just thinking about how I'm going to join this up. It'd be nice if we could stick to quads because we've done that for the rest of the model just to keep it consistent. But I'm not worried too much about that. And I can't help myself going through and clearing up some of these parts, but I promise I'll try to move on. So yeah, let's just select this edge right here. And we can do this in top view. Just extrude this out and try and get the shape of the foot that we want. I kind of like that silhouette, so I'm just going to merge these vertices together now. Merge it last. There we go. And now we've got to think about how we're going to join this up. Let's try it like this, see how this looks. I'm just thinking about where these quads and triangles are going to be. So let's try dissolving this edge. Maybe I need to move this down a little bit as well. Like that. There we go. Yeah, that's the basics of the topology I'm going to do for the foot. So you can follow along. By topology, of course, I just mean where the actual vertices and edges are. I don't mean the proportions. So feel free to move this about. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. But this is what I'd recommend. And then another little detail as well, like I said, it's going to be wearing some sort of hiking boots. So let's add a cut down here, slightly below, and then we can scale this out, just like that. And we can give this a different color later on. If you'd also like, you can just move the whole thing down a bit. And that looks a bit more convincing, I found. More like that. You can try lots of different things. That looks quite good to me. And then yeah, that's it. So I want this to have this on the female version as well. I shouldn't have created the separate one. So I'm just going to quickly delete the female version. And let's also do the gloves as well. And then we'll copy this across to create the female version. So because a lot of these things are going to be in common. That's something I should have thought about from the start. But we're here now. So yeah, let's just select this loop right here that the hand's going to come out of. Scale this up a little bit on the z-axis. There we go. And for the hand, I'm not going to have like 4 separate fingers and a thumb. I'm just going to have a thumb and then create like a sort of mitten shape, which I find works quite well for these low poly characters. Adding fingers can be quite difficult, and it also adds a lot of polygons. So unless you really need them, like creating a first person game, I'd try and avoid it for low poly characters. So there we go. So what I'm doing now, I'm just creating this part right here where the thumb's going to come out of. And we could have our whole hand as just one quad. I think we should try that actually. So now we're going to move this up a little bit. You can experiment. I might not stick with one thing and try out lots of different options. So yeah, let's just extrude all of these out and fill these. And then let's select this loop and extrude this out to create the thumb. And then let's just select the whole thing and move it down a little bit and rotate it. There we go. And for this, we need to add a little bit more detail to these fingers. So let's just add a loop right here to see how that looks. We can start breaking this up into triangles as well, like this here. This is very deformed, so we might want to add a triangle here. Just press J. See if you like that. I'm not quite sure if I do. In fact, what I might end up doing is having a cut running along it. So let's create this little loop cut. I think it'll be worth it, even if it does add a few extra polygons. This is what I mean when I say I'm trying lots of different options. I'm not just sticking with any. There we go, just like that. And let's dissolve this one because I think I accidentally created one. Always be careful about that. That looks a bit better to me. We can add a bit of thickness to it now. And curve it in on the palm as well. We don't want it to be completely flat. That looks nice to me. Remember, everything will always look better with smooth shading if you choose to go for this. I'm just wasting time right here, but whilst we're working with quads, it's always cool to put a surface modifier on it if you want it to look smooth. Yeah, we'll carry on modeling the hand now. Just like this, and then let's skeleton on the sides. That looks nice to me. And then maybe just extrude it out one more time. Create these nice little mitten shapes. Perfect. I'm happy with that. Looking at my hands whilst I'm doing this, of course. And I've got some reference on my other monitor as always. There's some other low poly characters to see how other artists have done it. There we go. And I'm just going to move these vertices inwards a little bit so we've got kind of a taper going off. And then we can fill this in. And that looks good to me. Thumb might be a bit too long. Maybe you just need to make the actual hand itself bigger. Like this. Let's use proportional editing as well whilst we're here. It's not too detailed, but it'll work for us. It doesn't have to be perfect. So yeah, we've got those hands. I might quickly scale them up a little bit because they're looking quite small right now. That's better. And let's add another loop cut along here as well. So I'll put this about here. Make sure I turn off proportional editing. There we go, and that's some nice gloves for the character. Let's quickly look around. I'm quite happy with that. And yeah, maybe we should do the head as well before we create the female and male version, before we start differentiating. So this can be probably one of the most difficult parts of the character, aside from the hand. The way I'd go about this, actually, is by creating a new mesh. Let's add a cube. Scale this down and place it in position, like this. Try and get the proportions right. And then to make it work with the mirror, we need to delete one half. So let's just right-click and subdivide it a couple times. Let's go for 3 times. And then we just need to join these vertices up with this kind of square right here. It'll be easier to see once I've deleted the other half. Let's turn off this little X-ray view right here. Oh, be sure. There we go. This can be a bit weird. You need to have it separately in wireframe and normal mode. So there we go. I'm just deleting the other half. And what we probably should have done actually is smoothen this out. So I'm just going to quickly undo this. Apologies to when we just subdivided it. So subdivide 3 times. And then we've also got this little smoothness slider, which can be quite useful. So we can use this to make it more round. And this should have a similar effect to just putting on a subsurface modifier, creating a cube with a subsurface modifier, but we've just done it slightly differently. There we go. And I'm debating how far forward we put this thing. So let's turn on proportional editing and just start changing the shape of it now. Hope this isn't too high poly for us. That looks good. And yes, I'm going to delete this vertex in the bottom. Delete all of these vertices on the side that we don't want. And then I'm going to join these edges up. So let's just select these ones. Select these ones as well. There should be the same amount because I've created this with 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side and 4 on the other. It should be the same up there. And then we're going to press F3 and do bridge edge loops. And then this loop right here, we can move this. We can GG to move it down, move it up a bit. We can scale it. Let me turn off proportional editing. Remember O to use proportional editing. And we can start rounding this out. And make sure you've got clipping enabled so you don't accidentally move it to either side like this. We don't want to make that mistake again. There we go. This is of course just my way of doing it. If you've got another way to do it that you prefer, go ahead. This is just my method. That's worked for me in the past. A lot of this head won't be visible. It might just be the face that we see in the end if we'll have hair on it. And I'm also noticing now the neck's way too long, so let's change that. Let's just select everything and move this down a little bit. For the male one, we might want to move this out a little bit to create kind of like I guess an Adam's apple around his throat. There we go. And the head should be a little bit thicker at the top compared to the bottom. Maybe not as exaggerated as this, something like this. There you go. If you don't like proportional editing, feel free to go into sculpt mode. I might use that a tiny bit. This grab brush can be quite helpful. It's a bit like the move brush in ZBrush, if you've ever used that software. Perfect, that's our base mesh. You see the polygon count's quite high. But I always like to have a bit more detail for the face than the rest of the body. Perfect. I'm thinking for this course we'll have like a blank face for this character, but if you wanted to, you can create eye sockets by selecting some of these faces, like these ones, and then we can inset them. We could try this, see how it looks actually. I kind of like this looks. Yeah, you can inset them. Press B if you like, and this will create like the cheeks or the eye socket. You can kind of move these back, make sure we've got a nice brow at the top. And you can also use the knife tool just to draw on topology. And then move everything around so it's not as strange. Yeah, lots of ways to do this. We'll experiment and see if this looks good. I'm a bit stuck what to do with this vertex. So what we could do is merge this one up here, merge it last, do the same with this one, and then bring this vertex over, merge it here. I'm not really worried about quad topology anymore. This kind of works for us. There we go, that looks nice actually. And then let's think about how we're going to do our mouth. I don't know, you can experiment with this. I might just revert back to having a plain face. Yeah, you can use the inset and knife tool for this. Looks like I'm going to have to dissolve some of these. Dissolve edges. It's always worth experimenting though. I'll just delete these vertices and then fill back. That looks like our base character's finished, so this is a male base, so let's duplicate this, create the female version. And then let's hide the male one. We might make her a little bit shorter as well, but we'll do that later. In case we want to copy anything across, it would be nice to keep it the same proportions. So now I'm just going to go quickly hide the female version, because I think the male one might be easier to add the clothing for. I was just thinking we'll have like a top on him. So let's put a loop cut here. And another one right here. Scale this one out a little bit. So it's like he's wearing some kind of t-shirt. That's it, move this in. And then we'll do the same around his waist. Just add what do you think about where you can put this? There we go. So I'm trying to think if it should be this cut or this cut. I think we'll end up adding a new one. Let's just put this down here. And then we can maybe use this relax tool, see if it works. Just scale this out a bit. Let's make sure we use Alt S instead of S to scale. There we go. And we can kind of move this edge loop up. This might be a bit too high actually. Let's undo this and just drag this up. We could have like a belt going around him as well. Yeah, let's maybe try this loop. So let's Alt S this and move it down. I think that looks a bit better for where the top is. And I'm just going to go through and make sure the bottom of the shirt's roughly the right length all around his body. And the same thickness. That looks good to me. We might also give him a belt later. We'll see. That looks good. And now let's just make his legs thicker, almost as if he's got like cargos on, some thicker jeans maybe. Give him like a belt and some pockets. There we go. And if you need to, we can always add a couple more cuts here. We might actually need to when it comes to deforming, because I don't know if we've got enough cuts for this to bend properly. We'll explain that more when it comes to rigging later on though. There we go, there's our male character. So that's the clothing done, and now we'll just go across to the female version. So with this female one here, let's go into edit mode. And the first thing I'm going to do is just change the shape of the face. We want it to be a bit thinner at the bottom. So let's scale this in like this. There we go, just very subtle. And we'll also need to make the limbs a little bit thinner. So let's select some of these edge loops and just scale them one by one. We can turn off proportional editing. There we go. I'll do the same for the shoulders and neck. There we go. We'll bring the shoulders a little bit closer together as well. There we go. Let's just make sure we're scaling proportionately from the side as well as the front. And that's it. It's going to be quite hard working in like both side and front view. You have to constantly switch between. There you go. And yeah, we'll adjust her like base body before we start adding clothes. And then we'll probably do it the same way we did before. We'll just like add some cuts along to make it look like there are seams. There we go. Just like this. I'm not even using proportional editing here, I'm just going through each vertex one by one. And remember before with the male one we added another cut along here, so I might do that as well. And just move this forward. Let's get like the curve of her spine. Perfect. And then let's go through, let's make the feet a little bit smaller maybe. So let's just select them all in wireframe mode and scale them down. I'm going to press period right here and set my pivot point to a 3D cursor just so it scales down proportionally. Just make them a little bit smaller and then move them across on the x-axis like that. So let's make legs thinner at the bottom. So yeah, as always, you can spend all day doing this. Maybe spend a little bit more time than I am for this demonstration. Got a lot of cuts down here around to the middle, but not a lot up here on like the upper torso. So you can add some more loop cuts or insets if you need to. But I think we're just going to stick with this. I might bring the neck down so we've got some more polygons to work with down here. There we go. But I think that will work for what we need. Let's make the hands smaller as well. I think I forgot to do that. Let's just select all of these and scale them down a little bit, just a tiny bit, and then move them into place. There we go. You can use sculpt mode as well. And let's make the head smaller. Why not? Let's make the head smaller as well. We might have to rig them separately if they're too different, but we'll try. We'll try and use as much of the same rig as we can. There we go. Scaling things with a mirror on can be kind of difficult. Sometimes I find I need to scale it down and also move it in towards the center. But I'm happy with that. I think that looks okay. That's the best we'll get with the time that we have. There we go. For her clothes, I'm thinking we could try giving her overalls, because we can use the knife tool to like cut away some straps onto the base mesh. So let's give that a go. So first off, let's select all the faces that we want to thicken, or all the edges rather. And yeah, we can start using the knife tool to draw on. So it might come up to about here. And then I'm just drawing around. Looks like I've got a center snap turned on. So if we look at the bottom, which one of these, because I forget which one it is. Midpoint snaps on. Looks like I had the shift key held down, so we just need to get rid of shift. There we go. That's just a little thing with the knife tool. And then we can cut around so you can kind of see the outline that I'm going for here. And we'll cut across to the middle. There we go. And then let's create the inner strap as well, or the outer part of the strap, and then we'll extrude everything up. It'll be a bit easier to see what I'm on about later. There we go. That's it. So I've drawn these on, and then if we actually we might need to do a bit of cleanup with the topology, and maybe move these up as well. I might have done this a bit low down, a bit too low down. Just try moving this in. Don't worry about distorting it. So I'm going to join this vertex up to here, pressing J, and then I'm just going to join some of these up as well because we want everything to be nice quads as much as we can do. This one, I'm not quite sure where to join this. I think I'll just dissolve this. I'm not quite sure why I drew that one there. So yeah, let's join these ones up, and then we can select all of these. Right here, there we go. I've found one. So let's just join this up. Don't worry too much about keeping everything quads, but it's ideal. The main reason when we're doing characters we try to use quads is for subdivision. If we want to add a subsurface modifier, it can always work better with quad topology, but for this low poly character we don't worry about too much. So yeah, I've selected all of these, and I'm just going to extrude out along normals to add some thickness to it. You can see how that looks. And then of course we'll just get rid of the bottom one. So let's press X and dissolve edges, just so it flows a bit better. It's like it's actually coming out. This might look a bit better once we've added materials to this. So now let's just go through and try and flatten out some parts of this, make it look nicer. I might have made this a bit thick when I extruded it out, so we can just move some parts inwards, like this. And of course, you don't have to follow along the clothing I'm going for. Pick whatever kind of clothes you want to give her. But I think this looks quite nice. And then there we go. So yeah, this is like good practice using a knife tool. Whilst we're here, let's add another layer for like the neckline. I think this is something we've got to do on the male version as well, so we'll have to go and do the same there. I'm just going to use the knife tool to create this neckline. There we go. Let's add a little inner loop as well. In fact, what we can do is just Control R and then GG to move it up a bit, because I don't think that's too much distortion, and then we can just use Alt S to bring it in. That's it. I'm using a lot of this GG tool. It's very useful. There we go. And if that's too high, we can move it down as well. Maybe it's a little bit too high. There we go. Might try rounding off this. Let's just move this up because I'm not quite sure. I like how it looks. Like it looks very jagged, doesn't it? There we go. Nice, and then let's do the same for the male version. For this one, I might just Control R to add a cut down here, and then Alt S and move it down. Probably a bit more easy for the male version, because we haven't got all the overalls and the straps going up over the shoulders. There we go. I found one thing about me is I always make my clothes too thick on my low poly characters. You might have noticed. So if you don't like that, try not to follow exactly what I'm doing. That's a fair criticism of my work, I think. There we go. And whilst we're here, we can quickly add some materials. Let's go down to the materials tab. I'll call this light skin. There we go. So you just create whichever skin tone you like. And actually, it will automatically assign it. So let's just pick a color for this. Let's make it a kind of pink color. There we go. I always find it really difficult to make skin tones. Let's try how that looks. And then we can add... let's do it one by one, actually, because you might want to change them later. It's easier rather than trying to reuse materials. And it looks like we've forgotten to fill in the bottom of the boots. So let's just do that now. Don't do what I'm doing. Always make sure you pan around your models. Make sure we've got everything. There we go. And so to do that, I'm just going to select these faces and hit Grow Selection. And assign these. We need to do the same thing for the female version. Let's give this kind of a brown muddy color. That looks good to me. Now for the jeans, or his trousers, let's just select all these faces. Might be easier to do in X-ray mode, but I've got it now. There we go. I'm just thinking about like kind of outdoors wear, you know, let's maybe give him a green top as well. That looks good. There we go. And There we go, let's create material for this, create a new one. Now top. And let's make this green. Kind of like a yellow earthy colour. It's like shaggy. There we go, I might make these legs a bit thicker as well. I don't want them to look like leggings, it's just thicker around the knees. And at the bottom, I might select both these edge loops and just bring them down. And then for the hands, I might actually not have these as gloves. They kind of look okay. So let's delete these. Because it just looks like he's wearing gardening gloves right now. So we can just dissolve this edge loop and it still kind of looks like a hand to me. I'm happy with that. And then let's quickly add materials to the female version as well. So let's select our skin tone. There we go, light skin. Let's do the boots. Although I might be able to select the boots already. There we go. And then I'll just copy this because I might want to change the color for the female version. I'll just have to do the same thing I did to the feet again, so bear with me. I'm just drawing out these faces, and I think I also moved this vertex back a little bit, just to round it off. There we go. This is a good way to practice getting quick with selection as well, adding these materials. But yeah, so for the overalls, let's do that now. A quick way to mask selection as well, if you find yourself doing it a lot, is just selecting the boundaries like this. So select all the bounding loops. Mark this as a seam, which is used for UV unwrapping, but let's not worry about that. And if we go into face select, we can just island select the overalls and it might be a little bit quicker. And then let's give this some material. Assign this. There we go. Change the saturation maybe. I always find it a bit difficult to pick these colors. There we go, and then let's add her top as well. So I'm going to add a seam here and a seam here. You don't have to use this method, you can just select them manually, but I find it a bit quicker sometimes. A female top. Assign it. We can keep this as white maybe. Or try and give it a slightly muddy color. That looks alright to me. And we'll give her gloves as well. So yeah, I think I might stick with this method of marking seams from now on. Always forget about it. And if you've got multiple different characters, give them names. Don't just give call them male and female. You can give them names as well. There we go. I like that. And then in the next part, we can add some more details to the face, like give them hair. But I think we've already spent a lot of time on this in this part, but we've made decent progress. So yeah, we'll continue with this in the next video. Hello everyone. So we've got our base meshes finished for both the male and female character. And now we're going to go in and just add some hair, a last little detail to the character. Maybe do something with the faces as well, like give them some eyebrows. But I might keep this quite simple and not have like an actual face on there. And then we can start rigging the character. So let's start out on lots of different ways to do the hair. One way I'm thinking is, we're going to sculpt using a dynamic topology and then add a decimate or some kind of remesh to the sculpted object. So let's start here. I've got my cursor down here, Shift-C to put it back. I'm going to press Shift-A and we'll add a mesh. And to block out the shape of it, I'm going to use metaballs. So let's go down. I always forget where they are. Metaballs, cool. Let's just scale this down a bit. And once again, change the resolution. The resolution is always too high for me, so let's reduce the viewport resolution. Try 0.1, 0.01. That's a bit better. Now we can move this up and scale it down to create the shape of the hair. So let's create a couple of these, scale this down, and we can use this to block out like the rough form of the hair. I'm thinking about giving a ponytail coming out here. So let's just add this, and then let's get some nice little bumpy, like a nice bumpy hair texture. Just add a few of these. Lots of ways of doing the hair, by the way. We're starting off with the female one, which will probably be a bit more difficult because we'll probably have shorter hair for the guy. So like this, and then once again we'll sort it out later in sculpting mode. And then I imagine us having like a little fringe that comes down on this side. So I'm just going to give us something to sculpt with later. Yeah, as long as we've got something like this, this will be a starting point for us. Perfect. So that's done. We can then convert this to a normal mesh. So just type in F3, search up mesh. I'm going to call this a female hair. For now, we'll keep this as a separate object. So great, let's go into sculpting mode. And I'm going to use a tablet for this, but you don't have to. So I'm just going to move my keyboard up now and get my drawing tablet out. You can just use your mouse, so it's not like we're going to be sculpting for very long. And yeah, we'll do a remesh of this or a dynamic topology, so don't worry about topology too much. So let's come in here. You're getting used to the navigation right now on my tablet. So yeah, let's use a combination of like the smoothing brush. So use this one, increase the strength a little bit. You can also hold shift, and the crease brush as well to add some kind of patterns in there. And of course, most importantly, the grab brush. And we'll use this to get out the basic shapes. So we might end up adding some more geometry later on as well. Remember, a lot of this detail is going to be taken out when we add our decimate modifier, or we do our remesh. So make it quite bumpy. We want some of these details to come through. And we can also go down to the modifiers tab and add a decimate modifier, just to preview how it's going to look. So it will look a bit like this right now. And let's triangulate it. I don't suppose we need to, just in case. And we'll try and shade this smooth as well. So let's go into object mode. Shade it flat. So let's shade it flat. And then if we go back into sculpt mode, we can see it. And let's hope the decimate modifier keeps us. It should decimate it real time as we sculpt. But it can be a bit distracting to work with, so maybe disable it if you don't like it. That's it. And we want to have some triangles that we can then extrude out to create this fringe. Let's try and sort this out. That's looking quite nice for now. Just dragging this up to get the right shape of it. This can be quite a weird way of working, so you don't always have to have this applied. That's alright. Let's just use a smooth tool here to get rid of that geometry. It looks like I've messed it up a tiny bit. There we go. Let's put a decimate modifier back on. And also, if you wanted to have some nice lines going across the back of the hair, you can use this crease brush right here, with the multi-plane scrape, or the crease brush, which I believe is here. There we go. And you're just great. I might need to reduce the size and increase the strength a bit. There we go. And we can create some nice rows going back. There we are. Whilst I'm adjusting this slider right here, I'm holding down shift so that it moves slower. There we go. And I just want to get the grab brush back now. And just change the shape of this because I think her hairline's a bit too high. Whilst we're here, we can also change the shape of the face if you don't like it. I think it's too sort of triangular. So let's select some of these vertices. We're in mirror mode, and with proportional editing, I'm just going to move them in like this. There we go. Maybe move this one back just to correct the shape of her head. Looks a bit odd as it is. And then we can go into sculpting mode. There we go. Control tab sculpting mode, and just shift to clean this up a tiny bit if we want to as well. But of course, if you change the shape of the head too much, then you're going to have to fix the hair as well. But I'm quite happy with this. I like the way this looks. If we hide this body, we're going to have some weird geometry on the inside. So we can either delete some of these faces or just keep it. I'm going to keep it because it's not too much of a problem. But if you're going to export this to a game engine, always get rid of the faces you don't need. That's it. I'm going to press Alt-H to bring everything back. Or not Alt-H, sorry. I'm just going to... Oh yeah, I'll do it in the outliner here. But we can actually just switch back to layout mode and unhide the female base. There we go. And then for the hair, or for the ponytail, I'm going to save this file as. So let's do save as and just press this little plus here to increment it. I'm going to apply this decimate modifier. And then we can start editing this geometry manually. So let's get rid of some of these weak spots right here. Just use proportional editing. There you go. I'm correcting the face for a tiny bit as well. So yeah, that's the method we're using to do the hair. But of course, take some time to make it look better than mine. There we go. And this isn't perfectly symmetrical as well. So let's put our cursor here. I'm going to press Shift A to add a mesh. And let's go down. This could be one of the few situations we use a torus. But I'm just going to use a cylinder. Let's give it 6 vertices. Scale everything down. I'm just going to rotate this in object mode in case we want to rotate it later. So for example, here I'm scaling on the Shift Z axis. That's something we can only do if it's in if we rotate it in object mode. And when I scale on the Shift Z axis, I'm double tapping Z, just like this. You can scale this out, and this is going to be like a little hairband. And we can add a cut going around here and scale this out if we want to as well, just to add a bit more curvature. That looks okay. To create the rest of the hair, we could use metaballs again, but I'm just going to press Shift A to add a cube right here. Let's scale this down a bit. And we're going to subdivide this. So right click subdivide, increase the cuts to 10 and increase the smoothness as well, just so it's round. And we'll just use like the move and snake hook brush to create this ponytail because it's a bit easier. So let's go up to sculpting, and we'll also put on dynamic topology whilst we're here. So let's go up here. This is like the work tab for sculpt mode if you like to use it. Yes, enable dynamic topology. And let's check that we haven't got symmetry on here, because sometimes it's enabled, that's it. So we don't have any symmetry. And now we should just be able to sculpt this. So I'm using the move brush. And where's the snake hook? Right here. K, I think the shortcut is. A shortcut K. And we can just drag this down. Maybe our dynamic topology is a little bit too high, so let's change the detail size. So this is on relative detail right here. We want this to be constant detail. Don't worry about this too much, because this is all sculpting stuff, and for like this low poly course, we're not really using much sculpting. But let's try. We need to either increase or decrease the resolution. Let's try decreasing it or increasing it. Don't go too high. Let's see how this works. Actually, it looks like we need to increase it. So I'm going to set this to like 150. Keep it quite high poly. Why not? And yeah, we can just sculpt out this shape using the snake hook brush. Really useful. And to add more dimension to this, we can use the smooth tool just to smooth out the shape. So we got like a nice wavy pattern going on here when we add those bumps. And there should be an inflate tool as well, this one. I'm more familiar with ZBrush's sculpting in Blender, but a lot of them, like a lot of the brushes are the same. It's just about finding the right alternative. But Blender's sculpting tool is really powerful. So I'm starting to use this more and more. I'm using the smooth brush right here. And then we can use the scrape brush as well. It gives us nice planar surfaces like this sort of wavy pattern. And let's try and make it thinner towards the end. Like flatten it. There we go. G is the shortcut for the grab brush. There we go. And yeah, let's put a decimate modifier on this as well before I forget. It won't work because dynamic topology is enabled. I'll just go into object mode. There we go. Now we can see the decimate and drag this down. I think that looks really good. So I'm happy with this. Let's just make sure all joins are right at the top. I need to move some of these vertices around after, but I'm happy with this result. So yeah, let's apply this modifier as well now. I'm not going to bother saving as because I'm pretty confident with it. And let's just go and correct a couple of these vertices. I'm going to move this one in just so it joins up with the rest of the mesh a bit better. And actually it looks like it comes out now, doesn't it? Can move everything if we need to. That looks good. And then here I'm just doing some, very, very quick refining. But take a bit more time than me with this step. Just make sure each of the vertices fit together nicely. We want this hair to join up with a hairband. No intersection like this. Just take your time on it. I mean, no one's probably going to notice this, but it's always nice to be polished, isn't it? I think that will do for now. So yeah, I'm just going to join these objects up together. And let's quickly go to materials. Let's go down to materials tab. Let's see how she looks with blonde hair. So let's call this female hair. Let's give it like a kind of yellow color. There we go, that looks nice. And let's see what color for this. Let's create a new one. A female hairband, assign this. And let's see. I kind of like this sort of greeny yellow one, so let's go with something like that. Maybe too bright. There we go. Now, I always make everything too saturated, so I'm trying to be like a bit dull with these colors. There we go. And that's our female hair. So now we need to do the same for the male one. Shouldn't take as long. We're in the sculpting tab right now. Let's go back to the layout one. I'm just gonna. Actually, I'm gonna join this hair up to the base mesh. So let's. Actually, no. You know what I'm saying. We'll do this later because we want to keep the mirror modifier on the base mesh. So let's go down to the male one. Hide both of those. And this time, what we might do instead is because it's shorter hair, we can just select the faces that we want to have for the hair. So all the ones that are going to touch it. We're going to press Shift D and P to make it its own object. And now we can just delete or dissolve some of these faces. I'm just going to move this one though. Don't worry because we'll remesh everything later. There we go, a bit like that. And I'm just going to extrude down a little sideburn here. There we go. So to do this, we can add a solidify modifier. There we go, solidify. Let's apply this mirror, because we don't want to be working symmetrical anymore. And it should be coming out here. Let's quickly put material on this just so we can see it as a separate object. Delete all these ones, there we go. Male hair. And what color do we think for this? Let's just go kind of like a dark color maybe. Dark brown. That's it. And so this is even thickness right now, which isn't very nice for what we're doing. So let's start off, just increase the thickness a little bit, so it's going further out. And then we can actually use a vertex group to mask the thickness. So we haven't got any vertex groups on this mesh right now. Let's go down and add one. Thickness, this might be a convoluted way of doing it, but it's nice, so it's all work out. And now we can actually see this factor. We might need to actually start working on vertex group in order to see it. So let's go up to weight paint, and I believe now let's hide this. We can start painting on in areas like in red. There we go. Let's increase the weight, and yeah, we can start painting on, and red areas should appear more thick now. Like they said, I suppose we need to decrease the factor. There we go. But we don't want to do that, so it's almost like sculpting now, I suppose, and then we just paint on where we want the thickness to be. Like this. This can be kind of cool. Probably not the most useful for what we're doing in this situation, but it's something nice to show you. Another cool thing you can do in Blender, like use these vertex groups for modifiers and see it update real time. There we go, try and contour him a little bit. And then once that's done, I'm just going to apply this, because we've shown that now. I'll apply this back to the solid view. There we go, go into object mode. And I'm just going to use a bit of proportional editing to fix some of this. Because you might have made his hair a little bit too wacky. There we go, let's fix this fringe as well. So one thing we can do here is select some of these faces and we can inset them like this. Let's move everything back so it intersects with his head. Looks like we shifted everything a bit. His hair's looking a little bit nicer now. So these are just a couple techniques for creating these hairstyles that I've played around with before. But try to develop, like your own technique as well, if that's something you'd like to do. Be a bit more original than me. That looks okay there. Let's make sure we get a nice shape, like a nice silhouette of his head. Kind of making him look a bit like me right now. This is the best way to describe my hairstyle. There we go. Yeah, I pretty much just made myself in Blender. There we go. So yeah, you can keep tweaking this, but we'll move on now, and we can move on to rigging. Just before that, if you wanted to add eyebrows, it might be nice for a little low poly character. As we'll just quickly go through it because it's nothing difficult. Cursors. Oh, let's put our cursor there. That's fine. Shift A to add a cube. Scale this down a bit. Let's just work on one side because we'll mirror it across. There you go. I'm adding a cut in the middle just so we can, like work on the shape a bit more. There you go. And let's add a mirror modifier. It looks like the origin points right up, so let's just use this mirror object pipette right here to select this, and let's put the same hair on it. Male hair. There we go, there are our eyebrows. Let's move them back a tiny bit. There we go. And I'm going to apply this. Actually, no, I'll just add Control J because we've got the mirror modifier on both of them. So it's just Control J to join it to the rest of the face. And actually, going to island select this eyebrow, Shift D, P to create it as its own object. Right here. And then I'm just going to call this, well, I don't need to name it. Let's hide the male and the male hair. And let's bring back the female one. And let's just join this to her. She's got a slightly different head shape, so we need to move it back in place. There we go. I think her face is a little bit flatter as well. And now she's got eyebrows as well. Just a little subtle detail. There we go. Perfect. And we'll quickly add this material. Create a new material slot. Female hair. And it's fine. And now she's got blonde eyebrows to match her hair. Perfect. So I believe that's our character model finish. You know, we can add some more details, but I think we should move on to the review now because we've pretty much covered everything. And so, yeah, let's get started with that. I'm just going to press Shift-C to place our cursor back to the center so we can create our armature. Sometimes it's nice to use a bit of help as a starting point. So you press Shift-A, we can come down here to armature, and there's an add-on that comes with Blender. I believe it's called Rigify that gives you some of these options. So this basic human like this, and then we'll just move these bones around to our character to enable us to control it. But we're using up a lot of time already, and I think we've come towards the end of this video. So with that in mind, let's start off in the next video. And we won't use one of these preset things, so don't worry about the add-on, we'll create it from scratch. But that's basically what we're doing. We're going to create this little armature right here, and then we paint on for each bone the vertices that will be controlled by it. And that means that when we animate our character, we'll just be moving around these bones like this. So if I wanted to move her arm, we'd rotate this bone, and we can just use like move, rotate, and scale like anything in Blender. So yeah, we'll be posing these, and that's how you animate a 3D character if you've never done that before. So yeah, I'm just going to delete this armature, and we'll create our own armature from scratch in the next part. So we'll see you then. Hello everyone, and welcome back. So now we can finally get into rigging. So let's not waste any time here. Let's start out. I'm going to work on the female character first, just because we've already got her open. I imagine we can copy the same skeleton onto the male one, and then just move the joints around a bit so that they fit his proportions. So we're going to create a new object here. This is I think we showed this a bit in the last video, just to hype it up. So we add a new object on this armature section right here. And instead of selecting one of the presets that come with this add-on I've got enabled, we're just going to add a basic bone, and we'll create our own one from scratch. So first off, we can see this create this new object called an armature, and I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this rig female. And later on, we'll parent the body mesh to this. So now let's change a couple of these settings. The first thing you'll notice is that this bone's going to be inside the character. It's kind of hard to see. So let's go down to this tab, I believe it is right here. The viewport display. I'm going to tick in front, which just means even though it's inside the character, it will always appear in front. And we can also enable names, why not? Because we're going to rename these bones later. So let's go into front view. I'm going to scale this down, make sure we're in edit mode right now. There's a new mode right here for these objects called pose mode, which is when we actually want to animate them and move them around and pose them. But we don't want to use that. We want to use edit mode whilst we're actually editing it. So let's go into the front view. And first thing I'm going to do is move this bone up to where the hips will be. And this will be like the actual hip bone. Just move it forward a tiny bit as well. We can always change this later. And then let's extrude this one up. And this will be like the spines. So let's just add a couple bones here. I'll add one here and one here for simplicity. And for this neck bone, we'll be extruding one out for the neck, like this, and then another one for the head, which means that like the head will be posed about this point. Once again, we can always change it later, so don't worry too much. Might even move this a tiny bit. There we go. And yeah, this shouldn't be perfectly flat, by the way. Let's move it around so it better fits the shape of her spine. Of course, the actual spine's back here, but just for automatic weight, something we'll cover later, it's usually best, I find, if the bone's in like the middle of the body. So let's just move this around so it follows her spine. It should curve like this. That's all right. And then let's quickly name these ones. So I'm going to hit F2 to rename it. You can also do it here, like you have to find it in the outliner, or you can go to this bone tab right here. And I'm going to stay on this tab, and I'm just going to rename this hips, spine 1, spine 2, spine 3, well actually I'll call this neck, and I'll call this one head. Perfect, so that's all like the middle ones running down. And then we can start extruding out to create the shoulders and legs. So let's go into the front view again, and I'm going to extrude out. This will be the shoulder, but we're actually going to move this bone. We don't want it to be attached to the spine, so we're going to move it. You'll notice when we try moving this bone, its head, I suppose, is still attached to the spine, and we don't want that. We want to disconnect it. And so the way we can do that is by hitting Alt-P, and you can either clear parent, or you can disconnect the bone. We're going to keep it disconnected because we still want it to be parented to spine 2. Let's just move this in shape so it's about where her shoulder is. This will be her shoulder bone. And then we'll extrude our arm out. So you'll notice this black line right here that shows a hierarchy. And this is because this spine 2 right here, let's rename this shoulder, and then a period, capital L. We'll talk more about that in a second. You notice this line here means that this bone is parented to this one. So if we wanted to parent this bone to spine 1, we just hit Control P, and you can either connect it like this, which will actually move the head down to the tail of spine 1, like a chain, or you can hit Control P and then keep offset, and you can see this line moves so that on a bone, this is the head, this is, I suppose, the actual bone itself, and then this is the tail. And if you connect it, then the head of this bone will be connected to the tail of the other. But don't worry about that too much. And also, the reason I've put a period, a capital L at the end, I don't know if it needs to be capital, but I always do. That's because this is on the left side of the character. And so everything in the middle doesn't matter because it's just in the middle, but everything with a period L, we need to name it like that so that later on when we symmetrize the skeleton, it will copy all the .L vertex groups to .R vertex groups, and it will create us a new set of bones. So we'll do that later. So let's extrude out here. I'm going to try and put this where these cuts are in the middle. Might be easier to see them in wireframe. Just like this. And let's extrude out again to where the wrist is. Now, if you remember earlier, I was saying you already want a natural bend in the arm. I think this is one we were modeling. So I'm just going to move this back on the y-axis so that if we add IK to this, it will know where to put it. And IK is something we'll cover later as well. Don't worry about that. Just put this here. So yeah, there's already a slight bend. That's nice. And then we can extrude out a hand. So let's Alt-P to a clear parent. Let's move this to where the thumb should be. And I'm going to parent it to this bone right here. So hit Control P, keep offset, and you can see this line indicates such. Let's just move it down so it's in place. I always enjoy rigging in Blender. I think it's quite fun. There we go. So let's quickly rename these. So remember, everything here should be .L. Let's rename this upper arm .L. Lower arm .L or forearm .L. I'm just going to say lower arm and .L, and same with the thumb. Now we dodged a bullet by adding these sort of mitten gloves because if we were to do every bone in each of the fingers, that can take a lot of time to rename them. So luckily we don't have to do that. And let's continue with the legs now, which I believe is all we've got to do left. So let's just select this head right here. Let's extrude it down on a z-axis. And I'm just going to move this into position, and we'll parent this to the hips. So Control P, keep offset, and this will be where the actual hip is. Around about there. This should be in the middle of the knee. That's it. And then we'll extrude this down. Remember, have a slight natural curve. You can see it's sort of bent to where the ankle is going to be. It should be about there. And for the foot, you can usually have a little joint here where the toes are, but because it's such a low poly model, I think I'm just going to have one bone. Let's extrude this out, move the whole thing down a little bit. Just like that. And then we can check everything's in the center. That looks fine. Let's rename everything. Thigh.L, shin.L, and then foot.L. There we are. That looks like everything's sorted. So we might end up going back, but whilst we're here, let's see if we can actually get this character to move. So I'm just going to go into the material view, why not? So first off, let's select this character right here, and we need to add a modifier onto this character. Let's keep the mirror there for now. Don't worry about that. So let's go down, add an armature, and we can select this armature object right here. So I'm just going to use a pipette to select rig female. And we'll notice I don't think anything will move right now. And that's because instead of adding the modifier manually, we're going to use like an automatic way to do it. So let's get rid of this. And let's parent it to the armature. And we hit Control P. And this is a little shortcut that Blender gives us. So it gives us this. So usually you just parent to an object and it's alright. But we can go down to armature deform. and then with automatic weights. And this is just Blender helping us here. So it automatically creates vertex groups that assign to each one of these bones. So a vertex group, I think we've used these before in this course. We used them to create the hair in the last video, in fact, I think. And you can see it masks, so each one of these bones, right here, it's like that's a foot one. Each one of these bones will have like a, how do we select these vertex groups right here? And you can see which parts of the character are assigned to them. And then if we move this in pose mode, remember, so pose mode, a shortcut is Control Tab. You can also change it up here. Let's go to pose mode. And if we rotate it, now the character moves. So it's created each of these vertex groups automatically. And to be honest, they look okay. Most of them seem to work fine. Of course, the hair won't follow, but this can be quite satisfying. You know, our character's really animatable now. Let's see how the shoulder, usually the shoulder's a difficult part, but it looks like it's okay. I'm happy with this. And even the head looks like it's alright as well. We tend to need to fix the chin. It looks like we're going to need to fix the eyebrows as well, actually. Yeah, don't worry about the other side, by the way. Because we're going to use Symmetrize for that. And this is a little shortcut in Blender. Another thing that's helpful. If we name these as such, we can copy this whole side of the character. So let's just select everything here. We're in edit mode. I'm going to change to lasso just because I like this. And we can F3 to type in, I believe it's Symmetrize, so Armature Symmetrize. And it's created our other side and it's automatically renamed these, which is very useful. And let's see if this works now. We might need to do something else. Yeah, it looks like it's because we haven't got the vertex groups named. So this mirror modifier right here, let's also try moving it after, just see if that helps. I imagine not. Let's try switching the order back. It's sometimes hard to remember. Let's put the mirror first. And what this mirror will do, I believe, is create copies of all of these vertex groups. Well, we need to create the copies, but if we create an empty vertex group with shoulder.r, it will like mirror the information from .l across to it. So let's try that now. Let's try the hand.l. So let's create a new vertex group and let's call it hand.r. And let's see if it mirrors it. It's not quite working. This one's working though. I think it's just the thumb. So yeah, let's go through and just create copies of all these groups, just empty ones. So for each bone, let's go down in order. So I've got upper arm.r, lower arm.r, and as we go in here, so make sure you name them correctly. So the upper arm.r, lower arm.r, hand. Now we need to add the thumb. There's probably an automatic way of doing this, but it's quite a simple character we've got, so let's just do this by hand now. It'll probably be quicker. Shin.r, foot.r, and I believe that's all of them. You can always fix it later if it doesn't work. So now we can pose each of these bones, and we've still got our mirror modifier applied. Of course, if your character's not symmetrical, you know, maybe you've already applied your mirror modifier, or you want to have like a pocket or a strap on one side that isn't on the other, then you might have to do this by hand, but don't worry about that. There are also lots of rigging tutorials out there on the internet. This is just like just to quickly show you, so we can, we can say we've done it and we've tried it before. So now we might need to do some manual weight painting here. So I've selected this object, this mesh. Let's Control Tab to go to weight paint mode, and we can select the vertex groups that we want to paint here. Let's go up to head, and to start out with, let's just make everything. So let's increase our strength and our weight to 1, and everything here should be red, like the whole face should be red, including the jaw. Let's just quickly fix that. We can also isolate the object, quickly hide the hair. And remember, you don't always have to weight paint. There are lots of ways to assign to a vertex group. In this case, for the eyebrows, let's go back into the object mode. Oh, sorry, let's isolate. Yeah, we'll go into object mode, and if we select these eyebrows right here, and we want to assign a weight of 1, so we can use this weight slider here, and whenever you hit assign, it will assign this value to the group that you've got selected with all the vertices that you've got selected. So I'm assigning just the eyebrows to the head vertex group with a weight of 1. And you can also remove them from a group or give them a weight of 0 instead. So let's go back into object mode, and now they should move with the head. Doesn't look like they are, And that might be because they're also part of another vertex group, most likely the neck. So let's remove them from the neck group, because it will blend between the head and the neck. It will try and reach a compromise. So let's go back into object mode. And now we can see they move with it. And whilst we're here, let's also just paint away from the neck, because it looks like some of the faces are assigned from the neck. So we can see, although this is red, it will kind of blend this with all other vertex groups that have got the vertices selected. If that makes any sense. So this is all red on the head one. Because it's also on the neck, we're just going to need to paint this away. So with a strength of 1 and a weight of 0, we could just paint her face blue. Oh, that's it. Oh, that's okay. And let's also get rid of some of this chest as well, because too much of that's selected. And now we can just go through. The hips are looking okay, but we might need to add a little bit more. You can use a drawing tablet for this as well if you like. Just select the hips. There's a hip screw as hard to find. There we go. And I believe actually if we select this armature and then shift select the mesh, I hope I got this right way around, and then control tab up to the weight paint mode, we can select these bones right here. So yeah, I think you can shift select them, right, control select, yeah, control click to select them. And it just means you don't have to choose it from this list. You can just pick the bone that you want to paint. Not many people know that one. Took me a while to figure that out. So I'm just gonna, and the advantage of this, you can quickly pose it around. So like here, I'm gonna pose this to move it up. And let's just increase the strength, decrease the weight. Sorry, I'm gonna keep the strength around about here, but decrease the weight. And we can just paint away parts of this because this shouldn't be moving right now. Unfortunately, we'll have to repeat this process for the male character, but I just see it as extra practice. It can never hurt. There we go, let's paint her away. And that's deforming a little bit more naturally now. And let's also see how the hips are looking. So let's control select this. That's okay, to be honest. I think that's deforming alright. Let's see how the knee's looking. Looks okay to me. I'm just gonna have a strength of 1 and a weight of 1. I'm just gonna paint this whole thing red. Well, not the whole thing, but the base of it. That's deforming a bit better now. I like that. And I'm going to paint away from this. So let's decrease our weight. And this whole base of the shoe should be blue. There we go. That foot's looking good now, for the most part. Maybe a few tweaks we need to make, but I'm happy with that. And yeah, once again, you know, like everything, spend a bit more time on this than I am. This is just to show you. Hands looking okay, and so is the thumb. Remember number pad period to jump to a bone if you want to pivot around it. Let's see how our left side's doing. Remember the right side, sorry, not the left side. Everything should copy across. That's looking good. And just like in object mode, you can select everything in pose mode. And if you hit Alt G and Alt R, it will just reset everything. Sometimes you need to spam it. So let's pose this, and don't worry about posing something because if you press tab to go into edit mode, or in this case, we might actually, because we've got both selected, it's kind of weird. So let's just select the armature, and if we go into edit mode, you can see this is like the rest, I suppose you'd call it the resting position. This is the T pose, and then the pose and in object mode will display how it's being posed. So you can put it in a nice position like this, but if you want to edit the armature again, just hit tab, and everything will be back to normal, just like this. So I'm just going to select everything and clear. And now we need to copy this for the male version. So that's it. Let's select this armature. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. Call it rig male. And now we need to assign this to the male one. So let's see if we can remember how to do it. I'm just going to hide these, bring back the male base and male hair. And remember, we need to select this mesh, and then we need to parent it. We need to parent it to the armature. So let's do that quickly and hit Control P to parent with automatic weights. It looks like this female one's still showing up. I think they've been buried in the outline, haven't they? So yeah, unfortunately, because they're like children of each other, we'll also need to hide the female base down there. That's okay. And I don't think we did actually make the female shorter. Like we didn't scale her down at all. So our proportions are okay. Let's just move some of these. Because I've already mirrored it, whatever I do to one side, I'm going to have to copy across to the other. Just be a bit more careful with that. There we go. And everything should deform. So yeah, we'll just have to weight paint it a little bit. That's looking okay, and our shoulders are working a lot better than the female version, which is nice. So let's just do the same thing that we did before. I'll try and be quick with this because it's stuff we've already covered. So I'm going to remove this from the neck collection, and I'm going to assign it to the head collection. And then let's just quickly do our weight painting. If you remember before, when we painted this head to be red, we then had to paint it blue on the neck. So we're painting it away from the head, and then we're painting it onto the head, and then we're painting it away from the neck again. But there's an option to do this for us called auto normalize, and I believe this should work. Let's hope it does. So we can see currently like a little bit of blue here on head. You know, it's like a little bit of green, I suppose you'd say. It's on a scale from blue to green to red. But if we paint this onto the head, so let's go a weight of 1 and paint on the head like this, it should auto normalize and paint it away from the neck, and you can see now it's turned blue, which is perfect for us. Saves a lot of time. This is another thing I didn't know till a little bit too late. Let's do the same. This will be useful for the thigh as well. And this honestly, this mode makes the whole weight painting process so much better. There we go. Looks like this male one deformed a bit more naturally. I think the shape of his hips and shoulders is just a bit easier. So again, I'm going to set a weight of 1 and a strength of 1. I'm just going to paint on the base of the foot. So this is fully assigned. Just like this. Nice. And everything should copy across. Remember, when I'm selecting these bones here, I'm holding control. Because otherwise you could just start painting. So yeah, you control to select. This is kind of weird. So yeah, let's go back into object mode now. And that looks like the rigging done. Now we just need to add the hair to it. We can either assign this to this bone, or we can just add it to this character mesh. So let's quickly join it up. Make sure there are no modifiers on it. Yeah, let's join it to this head. And or before we do that, actually, this will give us we'll try mirroring it, won't it? So let's apply this mirror modifier once we're happy with it. I'm going to quickly file save as, just in case I want to go back to the pre-mirrored character. There we go. So let's apply this mirror modifier. And this should mirror all our vertex groups as well now. So that's fine. Now let's join this head. And then we just need to select these vertices. Go down to the vertex groups. And just in case you think it's already assigned to any vertex groups, I believe here you can go and remove from all groups. And this would just do this button right here, but to every single group. So you have to do it individually. And let's add it to the head with a weight of 1. And now if we try posing him, the hair should follow. Let's do the same for the female one. I'm just gonna bring these back. Not sure what this empty here is doing. I think that might be for the water. We'll see. You see, yeah, where's her hair gone? It's right here. Apply this mirror modifier, and then we'll merge the hair with Control J. That's it. Control J. Go through, and I'm confident there are no. It's not assigned to any vertex groups. But remember, there's tools here if you ever need it. Let's assign it to the head with a weight of 1. Now, of course, one thing you might notice, her ponytail it won't wiggle around with her head. You might want to add a couple bones for her ponytail, so that when she turns her head like this, you can have it drooping downwards. But that's another level of detail. Might be a challenge for some of you maybe. But yeah, we've covered the basics of rigging. The only other thing to do is IK, we add inverse kinematics. This is probably beyond the scope of this course, so just consider it a little bonus crash course. But we'll add a constraint to some of these bones right here, called IK, inverse kinematics, which means instead of posing it like this, when we animate it, let's say we're doing a walk cycle, instead of having to move the legs up like this, we can just move the foot and the knee will automatically bend for us. So let's go into edit mode. And with this bone selected right here, we're just going to extrude up. And we're going to rename this foot IK.L. We probably should have done this before we mirrored it, but this is okay. We can do it manually, or we'll just show you the left side, and then you can figure out the right side as well if you want to do that as well. But like I said, this is just a crash course. And we want to untick this deform option right here, just so it doesn't add any vertex groups. But don't worry about this, because we've already added our vertex groups. So we've got this, and so now let's select this IK bone right here. So we've got this one selected, and then we shift select this one. So this should be yellow, and this one should be orange. And then because this is the one that the constraint's going to be on, and we press Shift I, and nothing has happened. And that's just me being silly. And that's because we're in edit mode. We need to be in pose mode for this. So Control Tab, hold down Control Tab, go to pose mode. And luckily our selection carries across the same from from edit mode to pose mode. So now if we try it, let's select this and Shift I to active bone, and you can see it turns yellow, and that's because it's got this constraint on it. Right here, this bones constraint tab, not the objects constraint. And we should be able to move this. So let's see what's wrong here. It might be because it's parented. So let's in edit mode. I'm going to be switching between pose and edit mode. If it's yellow, it's edit mode. If it's like turquoise, then it's pose mode. I'm just going to press Alt P to clear parent. Let's see how this looks now. And we can see it's moving. It's doing what we want. You see this bone's bending automatically. And we need to reduce the train. Or if the chain length is on 0, that just means well, we can see let's increase it to 2, I believe, or 1. I think 2 is the right amount, and that just means that the next 2 bones will move. If it's on 0, it's effectively infinity, so it will like move the whole character to bend. But yeah, we can see this leg working now quite nicely. But we can't control the angle that's going around, and to do that we need to add something called a pole. So let's just select this blob right here, extrude it out on the y-axis, and let's call this a foot pole .l. And we're going to parent this to this IK. You don't have to have it parented to anything, but I usually like to parent the poles to the IK bones just because it's easier when moving about. So that's it. Let's select these. Control P, keep offset, and we're just going to move this out on the y-axis. And then we'll use this as like the direction. So the head right here will be the direction that the knee points in. We'll see this later. So let's go down for the pole target. We're going to need to select this, and then just type in pole, foot pole.l. I probably should have named it leg instead of foot, but that's okay. And we also need to change this pole angle right here to an offset of minus 90 degrees, it looks like, or something like that. Just so it's got the angle right. And let's try moving this now. So you can see we can move the leg up, and then we can also rotate it around. So it's kind of hard to see of all these bones here. If you don't like this shape, by the way, I believe this is octahedral, but we can go up here, change this from octahedral to B-bone, and then if we select everything, we can select, I think it's Control-Alt-S, yeah, Control-Alt-S, you see that in the bottom left right there, to decrease the thickness, and this looks a bit more professional to me, it's easier to animate with. So this is how we'd animate our character. And let's do the same for the arms quickly. We'll try and go through this as quick as possible. So let's extrude upper hand, got the whole thing, there we go, let's just select this, extrude upper hand IK, Alt P to clear parent. I call this IK.L. Select a pole, so extrude this out. I'm just using this as a starting point. Alt P to clear parent, and this will be parented to arm IK, so Control P, keep offset. And I'm just repeating the same process, but of course the elbow is going back this way. And I'll rename this pole.l. And now we need to go to pose mode. Don't make the same mistake I did last time. Try doing it in edit mode. And let's make sure we've got this selected last. Shift I to active bone, and that will add our bone constraint. And we can also select it from this list right here, but it's quicker just to do Shift I. So let's set the chain length to 2 and try selecting this pole target. We might need to rotate it or change that angle. Sorry, not rotate it. Yeah, that's fine. And let's just play around with this angle. Sometimes it's more difficult to find than this, but I think it's just minus 90. And then we've got our arms done as well. And this is much easier to animate. Let's move our angle. And here we go. So we can repeat this for the other side. I think 90 might not quite be the right angle. So let's just try reducing this a little bit. Or, yeah, there we go. Okay, it's minus 70.1, something like that. Yeah, that's very quickly how you set up IK. And we can use this to pose the character in the final renders. I think we'll leave it just like this, so because we're not animating a proper walk cycle or anything, we can just pose them in FK. That's what we're doing here on this side of the character. And that's quite nice and rendered actually, doesn't it? Let's put her foot back down on the ground. We can also rotate her hand. I'm going to try and make a wave. Does that look nice? And that's our character's finished now. So let's go back into rendered mode. And we can bring back our male one. We've got our male rig as well. We can move him. If you want to move the whole object, just move the actual rig. Let's control tab and reset his poses because we put him in a bit of an odd spot. Let's just bring his arms down by his side like that. Okay, maybe when it comes to rendering, we'll put these two in a nice pose so they're not just stood here looking like idiots. Let's rotate these arms forward. I'm aware this video has been quite long, but we've managed to finish off the characters, so let's finish up quickly rather than continuing anymore. Let's add the scenery back. And it looks like I must have created a characters collection before. Don't need that though, since we've already got one. And yeah, let's just move these rigs. We can always use snapping, face snapping, just to snap them on the ground. With the pivot point to snap with active. There we go. So we can just place them on the ground and see how they look in rendered mode. Remember to disable this option here so you can see them properly. And let's also bring back my son. I think I hid the setup collection. So congratulations for finishing this section. We've got our characters added. Very basic, but I think they look quite nice. And yeah, try and be adventurous with this, take it further. Maybe you can add more characters than just 2, or modify the existing ones we've got. But that's all the modeling finished in this course. In the next part, we'll just be talking about placing these assets in a nice way. We might touch on the asset editor, and we'll go through render settings so we can get some nice portfolio images. So nice work, and we'll see you then. Hello and welcome to the final section of the course. We're almost finished. In this part, we're just going to place around some of these assets, because when we are modeling them, we just kind of got everything clumped here in the center, which might not be ideal. So the first thing I'm going to do here is select this landscape. Let's go down to material, preview, and which one of these is this vertex right here. So I'm going to paint away some of these flowers. So this flower bush right here, I believe it is. Let's go to weight paint mode. Might need to bear with me here. Oh, it's because I've got this this option here. There we go. And yes, I'm just going to reduce my weight and have a strength of 1. And maybe 1's too high. We can reduce it to about here. I'm just going to paint away the flowers from this area around where my camera is. There we go. And let's do the same with the trees as well, just because I want to get rid of some of these. And what we'll probably do is place these trees manually instead. Let's just clear this area out, because this is where the houses are. That's it. Great. And then we'll do the same with the rocks. Shouldn't be that many rocks around it. And grass. No, we'll keep some of the grass. That's it. There we go. And remember, we created these vertex groups before, so that's what I'm using. In fact, this area around here, I might actually just place all the trees manually. There we go. And we'll notice when we first modeled all this foliage, it's all kind of stacked up here as well, so we want to get rid of that. Let's see if we can... that's it. So these, they're all nested within these collections right here. And so I'm just going to hide these ones like this, and they should all disappear. And that's cleared up a lot of space. We'll leave the clouds though. We can reorganize this folder structure to whatever works best for you. There we go. And that should look more open in rendered view now. Perfect, just like that. And I've noticed as well that this little bush right here is on its own. So let's go under actually, under trees. So this is like the final 10% of work before we do our portfolio renders, but it ends up taking 90% of the time. So it looks like this oak 1 and oak 1 trees are separate because they're parented. There we go. So let's just apply this decimate and add it to the tree. I think we did this before. I must have missed it with this tree though. Let's apply the skin as well. So I've just applied the modifiers and joined it together. And now that should work a bit better. There we go. And it's like it's recalculated where some of these trees are placed. So great. So yeah, I'll hide this tree. And remember to also tick this little camera icon here, because that not only hides it in the viewport, but it also hides it for the final renders. So we need to do that as well. And same thing with the sea life and foliage. We haven't placed any of the sea life assets yet, but we can do that in the river if you'd like to. I'm noticing there are a few too many flowers now, so let's go through and paint some of these flowers away as well. In fact, actually, I might just decrease the density. So under this flowers spawner, doesn't look like I've named it. There we go, flowers. We can just drag this density down. This is a slider we created before, so that was lucky of us to do so. And then let's also try, that looks like trees, that's the wrong one. I want to have a bit more grass, so let's increase the density of grass. This might be too high, but I think it looks quite nice. So I'm going to place my camera here. So Control-Alt-0 to place your camera if you've got one. If you haven't already got one in your scene, I'm just going to select this setup collection so that it will be added to it by default. I'm going to press Shift-A to add a camera. There's a camera. I always go a bit blind and forget where it is. Oh, right down here, camera, there we go. And Control-Alt-0, yeah, bear with me. And if we haven't used cameras before in Blender, you can always hit number pad 0 to jump to the active camera. And there are a few settings that we can change as well. This is already framed quite nicely. You can hit RR to activate this kind of free rotation mode and hold shift as well. So you can angle it like that. And the way I like to rotate this, you can like go to local orientation and do R, X to up and down, Z to do a Dutch roll, and Y to pan. But I'll leave it on global because I used to double tap in the axes. So let's go down to this camera tab right here, and we can change some of these settings. The focal length is on 50 millimeters by default. You might want to increase this or decrease this. Sometimes it looks nicer if you decrease it and then dolly the camera backwards a little bit. So let's double tap let's press G and then double tap Z to move it backwards. You might need to I think I had snapping on then. So yeah, bear with me. And then let's just drag it backwards. Looks like it's clipping into the ground here. But the focal length acts a bit like a field of vision, I suppose, in like a video game. You know, if you play an FPS, you like to have a nice high field of vision. So I'm going to stick with about 74, 75. But if you'd rather work with field of vision, then I believe you have the lens unit right here. You can change it to field of view, and it says 23.3. So let's put this back to millimeters, and it's just like working with a real camera here. It's very useful. So let's just move some of these assets around to try and frame it a bit nicely. We could add in some of our own trees if we want to as well. So let's go up to rendered view. I don't think I'm going to do that. And let's first off just move this building. And I'm switching between lots of different things. So let's jump down to where this is in the outline. If you remember, this whole building we didn't actually organize. So I'm just going to right click the selection to select objects, and then we should have everything. And now if I go back into camera mode, just going to move it down a bit so that the floor the floor is clipping into the building, and it's only got to look good from this camera view. So let's just rotate it like this, move it back a bit, there we go. And it looks like the back of this building is kind of intersecting with the river, but we're not going to see that from where our camera is, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. And let's also make sure this log cabin is in a nice spot. So right click this to select objects, and then we can rotate this on a Z-axis, and let's just move it over here like this. And then move it up a bit as well. How's this looking rendered mode? That looks nice. Let's select the clouds and move them down like this. Might want to have this cloud in front of the mountain slightly. That looks kind of nice, doesn't it? And what else can we change? Let's try changing the color of the ground, because I'm still not 100% happy with it. I desaturated it before, if I remember, but I think it's a little bit too desaturated. So let's just quickly change the color, get more of a yellowy color, and increase the brightness. There we go, that's much more vibrant now, isn't it? Maybe you can always switch to Eevee while you're doing this. And I'm now noticing that these greens, actually no, I'm happy with it. I was going to say the grass is a little bit too vibrant as well, but I think this looks nice. So let's go to the sun. Where's our sun? We can search for it up here in the outliner. It'll probably be under the setup collection. There we go. And I'm just going to move it over here so it's easier to manipulate from our camera view. And we can select a nice angle from it. So you can, let's quickly change our rendering engine to Eevee, just whilst we're doing this. Hope it doesn't break anything. So yeah, remember you can use this yellow ball to place it, or you can just move it and rotate it manually. Let's see how this looks in cycles. And I'll keep switching between. I'm just going to rotate this down. And I believe that I read this in a book by James Gurney, but one way to add drama to tool structures is to have like a partial shadow obscuring. So that's kind of nice. That's what we got here with the trees on this hillside in the building. I'm not sure how far we want it to obscure. That might be a bit too much actually. But yeah, if you want something to look tall, sometimes it's nice to cast a shadow across it. And I'm gonna, whilst we're here, let's go into solid view, just so we can see what we're doing a bit faster, or material view. And then I'm going to open up a second window. So I'm just going to drag from this corner right here upwards. And we're going to change this from a properties window to a 3D viewport. Number pad 0 to go to our camera view. And let's just disable the overlay with these two buttons right here. And then we can put this in rendered mode. And that means that we can see everything rendered in the bottom right. But whilst we're actually working on stuff, it's not going to be rendered. So now let's go in and paint some of this hillside because I'd like to change it. And because we're using like our procedural node setup, these trees should update. So let's go to, what should we use to do this? Let's go to edit mode. And bear with me if this is taking too long. And I keep switching between them. Let's put this back to Eevee because the shadows are going to look the same. And if this doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's fine. We don't have to stick with it. But it might be nice to try out. Here we go. Let's just try dragging this landscape down a bit so we've got more light coming in. Because our sun's at quite a low angle right now. Let's try and figure out where the sun's coming from. Looks like it's this sort of angle, doesn't it? There we go. That looks nice. And we've got these nice long shadows coming out from the grass. So let's just reduce that. Great. And then, yeah, so where's our sun? It looks like it's coming from here. So I want to have a shadow casting over this building, but just the building. So let's see if we can extrude out like a very thin part of the landscape to cover this up. Not quite sure. We're experimenting. You can try different things. I kind of like how that looks. Just a little subtle shadow. There we go. Spending quite a lot of time on this. But yeah, this is just what's going through my head whilst I'm lining up a shop. This is just one example. Keep switching between different things. You know, not just sticking with one idea. As soon as I see something right now, I'm thinking, oh, there's too much grass. So let's go through and decrease the grass again. It's not a linear process. So I'm constantly switching what I'm doing. Let's try how that looks. Great, so we've got some nice objects in here. Let's see if there's anything else we can move about. If you like using your composition lines, I've kind of got things set up in thirds, you know, like this building takes up like the left third of the frame. Same with this log cabin. We can go through down here in the camera settings. Let's just expand this up so we can see the properties panel. And under viewport display, I believe it is, we've got these composition guides and we can choose different presets that come with Blender. So you can see here what I was talking about with the thirds. And then we can just rotate this a little bit more to line it up better, rotate it on the Z axis. But yeah, we can also try different ones. So you've got like your center lines right here. We've got these diagonal ones and a golden ratio as well. So these can be quite useful. Another thing, it's optional if you have it or not, and that's depth of field. So I'm going to go up to rendered mode and I'm changing it back to cycles now. Although actually we can leave it on in Eevee. They've updated it within the past couple of years, and I find that depth of field works a lot better in Eevee now. So let's go down. Where is it again? Depth of field, yeah. So we just need to enable this option. We can see everything goes blurry, and this f-stop right here kind of controls the intensity of the blurring. So if we reduce it, everything will be a bit more blurry. And then we can also change the length, so like the part that it's focused on. So if we want a really shallow depth of field, you can also use this pipette here to select an object to focus on. So let's select this house object. And if we want everything to look really small, we can reduce it like this, and it looks, you know, sort of like a miniature set piece, doesn't it? And if you want to increase it, then you can do that as well. So let's see how this looks in rendered mode right now. Let's go up to cycles. Oh, that's kind of cute. I'm happy with this. Everything's a bit noisy now, but don't worry about that. And any other settings we can change. Let's talk about color quickly, about like saturation and contrast and everything. If we go down, I believe it's under the render settings here, under color management. We might have already touched on this. Let's just bring my properties panel in because I'm not used to working with it like this. It feels a bit odd to me. There we go, color management. So it's on sRGB right now, and we can see like the view transform is on Filmic, and then we can change our look to medium high contrast, and that just make everything pop out a little bit more, but like very high contrast. And if you're doing something brightly colored like this, I like the way this looks. Let's try high contrast. These are just, you know, some quick and dirty ways of getting it, but we'll go over color balancing as well in a sec. So let's go back to the camera tab. Slightly too much depth of field. Let's just increase this. 5 f-stops. Try 5 f-stops. I think that's as good as we're going to get it. And these people here, so let's move this guy. It looks kind of like she's, I'm not sure, telling them off maybe. Let's just remember to move the rig, by the way, not the character mesh. So let's quickly change our rendering engine back to Eevee. And let's rotate him like this. There we go. Let's put them in a nice spot. Didn't mean to press that. There we go. See how that's looking? I'm quite happy with that. And now we can go through and place some of these assets manually. Because so far, like, all this foliage is just the way it's been painted on. But we might want to actually move some of these about. So let's go to material view just so we can quickly edit it. And let's bring back our foliage collection. It's under scenery. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some paving slabs. So let's just get which one? These stepping stones. Let's duplicate these. We might just do it in the outline. I don't know if it will even let us. There we go. Let's unhide them, duplicate them. Not quite sure where they are, whether it will let us. Oh, it looks like I've got this overlay thing on there. That keeps annoying me there. There we go. So yeah, as I was saying, duplicate these and let's move them to a new collection. And I'll just call this manually placed scenery. I'm not worried too much about keeping my files organized because we're pretty much done now, unless you want to, to continue expanding this and add more assets. At this point in a project, it's just whatever works. I don't want to spend too much time refining things. And then now that we've got these, what else do we want to add? Let's add some trees. So let's go under trees right here. Let's have an oak tree. We can just choose them actually. Let's have this one, and this little birch tree. I'm going to shift D to duplicate and then move them to the manually placed scenery collection. That's it, and then make sure we hide these again. Perfect. So I'm using this in the bottom right now. Change my engine back to Eevee, and I'm just going to use this to place them. Yeah, the depth of field looks really nice in Cycles. In Eevee, sorry now. I used to not use it because it didn't look as good, but I'm quite impressed. So let's put this tree just here. Just has a bit more foliage actually in shot. We can barely see any of these nice trees that we made. There we go. Let's put it in here. Not quite sure if we want to, completely take out the shot. We can even move it closer, kind of have it looming over. What do we think? How does that look? Just something subtle in the top right, isn't it? I'm quite happy with that. And some of these trees look a bit odd. On the hill, we've got some trees facing the same direction. There's not much we can do about that to actually move them. But if we select this landscape right here, go up to the trees. Yeah, when we did this, we exposed a parameter for the seed, if you remember, in geometry nodes. So we can just change this in a properties panel and it will regenerate where it's spawning all these trees. So we can just select one that looks nice. Should have probably done this before we started adding the extra assets. We can just roll through these. Generating quite a lot of them in front of the camera, which is annoying. So let's just go through back into weight paint mode. Let's put the strength on. That's it. Weight 0, strength 1. And let's just get rid of all the trees in front of the camera frame, because this is too much. That's okay, that's looking good now. I'm happy with that. Let's try changing that seed now. And if you select one you like and you accidentally went past it, don't worry about it, because you can always just go back to the original number. So if you think, oh, I'm going through now, 23 looks nice, I might go back to 23. You can sort of think about it like that. That looks nice, I like this one. Yeah, let's stay with this. That tree isn't. It looks like it's intersecting with the log cabin, but it's almost impossible to see. So yeah, you can spend all day doing this, but once you've put one you're happy with, then we can move on to rendering. I'm gonna go back to solid view, where it looks like we're finished weight painting now. So yeah, that's how I line up a shot. Let's change our rendering engine back to Cycles, and it will look 10 times better. There we go. I get used to working with Eevee, and as soon as I change it back to Cycles, it looks amazing. A subtle detail. If we wanted to do it, we probably should have done it from the beginning. But it's just another thing sometimes when you're doing these low poly renders, is to add a little bevel modifier. So let's go, just to show you on this house here what I mean. Let's add a bevel modifier. Segments, will just give this like 10. Quickly do it in solid mode so it works quicker. Wonder why this isn't working. Beveling the edges. It might be because we've got this triangulate modifier. Or it could be because it's clamping the wheel. It's disable clamp overlap, and now do it. Yeah, so we haven't got perfect geometry, but of course if you wanted to bevel it from the start, you do this from the beginning. And what that does is it gives you nice little reflections on the edges of everything. On my camera, so you can see it a bit better. And this looks quite nice, I find. But it's not quite in line with the art style that we're going for. And I'm also targeting this towards games where we wouldn't be likely to have this bevel. But I thought I'd still show you. So yeah, there we are. I believe that's everything done. Let's go back into this view. and let's go up to the compositing tab, because we can do a tiny bit of color balancing. So let's quickly tick use nodes. We might have done this in a previous course. Let's also give us a bit of denoising as well. And yeah, we can change this later. So for the final renders, let's up the sample count. Looks like its max samples are on 4096 right now. That's very high. So we'll reduce this. Let's just put it on 20 for now. F12 to do a render. F12 is a shortcut. So, and then once this is finished, we can change it in the compositor. That's nice. And then let's quickly add a color balance. This one right here. Let's add our backdrop as well. As our backdrop. I need to add a viewer node. To do this, you press Shift A. Let's just search for viewer. There we go. And let's plug this in. Great. And now if we remember these settings, it looks like it's slowing down. Yeah, it's probably because we got this render open. I might be wrong about this. But either way, let's just put this into solid view for now. And in the compositor, there we go, let's play some of these, and you can also change the temperature. This will make our shadows a bit darker and cold. There we go. I found I always go a little bit too extreme with this. Yeah, so it looks like it's taking its time because it's got a lot to compute. I'm not sure which resolution I rendered at. Oh, it looks like it's only 1920 by 1080. There we go. And like I said, I always go too extreme with this. Let's drag it closer to the center. And we just got to see, how sunny we want this to be. I kind of like it. It's in the evening, so let's give it a slightly cool look, like a purpley blue color, just like that. And I think that looks quite nice. One problem that I tend to get with these low poly shrubs, or these bushes right here, is they cast pretty gross shadows. And sometimes if I'm taking this into a game engine, I'll just disable shadows on foliage, or give them like an opacity. But because these ones are already in a shadow, being cast by that landscape that we added behind to the right of the camera, well, we don't see any other shadows, just these nice diffuse reflections. And a bit of criticism, maybe some work could be done on the character poses, because they look kind of upright right now. So let's go back to the layout tab and quickly fix that, just because we're so close to the end. It's always worth doing this last bit. Let's just rotate them. There we go. It's difficult to do because we haven't got IK on this one. So let's just rotate in. Let's go up to local orientation. We can make it look as if he's walking. There we go. If you want to move the whole thing, you can just move his hips. Make sure his foot's on the ground. Oh, that'll do. That's close enough. There you go. Let's just give him a little bit of character, make him look not quite as immobile. That looks better to me. And for her, maybe she's checking something on her hand. Let's just make her look at her hand. So disable this local orientation. Always throws me off sometimes, but just pick whichever one you like. I'll stick with global. There we go. I don't think I added IK on this side, did I? Let's have her hand slightly turned in. There we go. She's kind of leaning back, she's checking something. But yeah, I'm spending a lot of time on this, so obviously go through and refine it on your own. It's just a quick example. I don't want to rotate her head too much because her ponytail isn't lined up properly. It's going off to the side. We haven't got a bone to make it go down. Now, do I want this lighthouse to be in the background or not? Because currently we haven't got it there. Let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, that looks nice, of course. Let's have it there. Because we've made all these assets, we don't have them off on the side. Of course, you can do multiple shots as well, if you'd like to. Let's put this down here somewhere. How's this look? Looks nice. And then I know I shouldn't change something like this so late. Let's change the angle of the sun. Just the tiniest bit. There we go, that's nice. And I know we've done color balancing, so this might throw us off. But I do think the sun's a little bit too cold, maybe. Let's try making it more yellow. I think I like that. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that now. I'd say that's our final version. So let's just save as. Make sure that anything you don't want to be rendered, I'm going to disable this archive here. yeah, so anything that you don't want to be rendered should have the camera disabled. Every time I render, every time I render, I'll accidentally have it there. So let's just go through the outliner and check it, and then yeah, we can increase the sample count to something a little bit higher. As I said, we go. So I render 1. Let's set this to, I don't know, to 2000, and you can increase the resolution as well. So it's on 1920 by 1080 right now, and yeah, so I'm going to render this, and I'll see you once it's done. There we are, there's my final render. I've left it on its own for about 5 minutes there. So let's make sure we get a nice really high quality version. And of course, if you want to save this, just go File and then Save As and select somewhere you want to keep it. So this would be quite a nice portfolio image. And remember, maybe render square. If you're going to post this on ArtStation or Instagram, then you can change this from 1920 by 1080 to like 1920 by 1920. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the course now. That's everything. So we've covered a lot of content. I hope you take some of these skills onto your Blender careers in future. And yeah, congratulations for following along. I've really enjoyed making it, and thank you very much.